Hello, BookTube. Well, the season of May Midrash is upon us. That's a BookTube event that was dreamed up by Jason at Old Blues Chapter and Verse, in which we discuss religion for the month of May, uh, mostly as it is seen through literature and maybe the other arts, but also just in general. And I made an announcement video for the event myself, and in that announcement video, in addition to talking about the books that I'm going to be reading, I made a lot of statements, a lot of discussions, and two claims, one large and one small. And they have generated a lot of emails in my inbox and a couple of videos, at least two that I've seen. So I thought I'd go over them. I thought I'd discuss them again, since the whole point of this thing uh, is civil-friendly discussion of all these interesting subjects. The larger claim that I made dealt with definitions, specifically the definition of atheism, because the conceit of this little event is that it's hosted by two Christians, one agnostic and one atheist, the atheist being me. And I pointed out that atheism is a spectrum, that there are people all the way on one end, hard atheists, so-called, like myself, who say there are no gods, make a positive claim. I am as comfortable saying there are no gods as I'm comfortable saying there are no leprechauns, there is no hollow earth. I'm comfortable enough after 7,000 years to say it's not that the jury is out, it's that this is a positive claim, this thing doesn't exist, these things don't exist. But then I believe the numbers there are fairly low. On the other side of the atheism spectrum is soft atheism, so-called. And I think that's much more common, where people just say, I'm not convinced, I've never seen any evidence for gods or goddesses of any kind. So I'm just going to live my life as if they didn't exist. It's just not a part of my life at all. I don't think about it. I don't worry about it. I don't care about it. I don't do anything like that. It's an element of my life that's completely missing. So it's just exactly what the word literally means. Atheism, without gods. Um, and I pointed out that if we accept that standard definition of a spectrum of atheism, then all of the hosts and everyone else in the world is an atheist. An agnostic, in the common definition of the term, means someone who says, I don't know one way or another. I'm not convinced one way or another. I'm open-minded. But if you're not convinced one way or another, that means, by definition, you don't actually believe one way or another. It means you're unconvinced. And if you don't believe in gods or goddesses, you are an atheist. You are someone who is living without the belief in a god or goddess. And the same thing is true for the religious. Devout Christians don't live their whole lives not knowing or caring at all about the predispositions, the moods, the prescriptions, the commandments of Marduk or Manan and Maclear. They don't care about these things at all. They live their lives completely free of even thinking about such a subject. They may think about those things for their own deities, but they don't think about it for other people's deities at all. And even that applies even if they aren't, like, for instance, fire-breathing fundamentalist Christians would say they hate those other deities, that those other deities are leading people astray. But most Christians don't think that way. They just don't think about it at all. It's just not part of their lives. There's no anger involved or rejection. It's just not there. Which means the larger point that I was making in my announcement video was that because that is true, even devout believers in Islam or Christianity or whatnot know exactly what it feels like to be a soft atheist. No stretch of the imagination. They are already a soft atheist towards all of the living religions in the world except their own, but also all the thousands of dead religions in the world. They know exactly what it feels like to walk around all day not knowing and not caring what Baal or Ashtoreth might think about whether or not you walk on the right side of the road or the left side of the road, whether or not you sleep with your own gender or some other gender. They don't have to think about what Baal or Ashtoreth cares about those things at all. So they know what it feels like. They just make an exception for their own particular deity. That was my larger claim, which I really didn't think was open to refutation. I think it's pretty self-evident that you can't believe in multiple religion systems. there have to be large numbers of religion systems that you don't believe in, unless we take belief and religion and just stretch them to the point where they don't mean anything, where we're alluding to some sort of great divine spirit. I review books like that all the time, where authors try to claim that's what they're talking about, but there's no way to do that. The various theological systems that mankind has adhered to over the millennia mostly contradict each other. There's no real way to bring them all under one umbrella. We'll be getting to that. But that was my larger claim of the claims that are sparking dialogue in my email. And my smaller claim, I mentioned it only in passing. I thought that it went without saying, which is that there's no proof for any of this. We're talking about matters of faith. We're talking about blind belief. There is no actual proof for any supernatural event of any kind, much less gods who are intelligent with a kind of human intelligence and who are paying attention and intervening in human life. There's no evidence for that, no matter what your pantheon is, no matter what your religion is. Those were two of my claims that seem to be sparking a lot of discussion. A tiny fraction of the discussion in my email has been rude, which I usually frown upon. I'm usually pretty harsh with that. We're all adults here and we're all friends here. There is no call for rudeness ever. But in this case, I'm giving it a lot more leeway because this is a very personal subject, and I'm hoping that discussions can result from there. But in addition to my email, there have also been video responses, at least two that I've seen, from two of my favorite booktubers. One was from Noah, at Everyone Who Reads It Must Converse, and the other was from Tom L.A. Books. Two great booktube channels. I'll leave links to them down below. And in both their videos, both Noah and Tom make what I consider to be two errors in their discussions of my own video and in religion in general. In Noah's video, there's a small error and a large error. And the small error is trivial. It only felt large to me because it was personal, and that made it sting a bit. Because more than once in his video, he claims that in my video, I was being condescending, and that is not true. I was not condescending in that video at all, and I try not to be condescending anywhere. I take this subject very seriously. I care about it a lot, and I don't disparage it in anyone. It is not condescending to simply put out terms. I don't know if maybe I put them out too flippantly, but I don't believe my terms are controvertible. I mean, an atheist is someone who does not believe in gods. An agnostic does not believe in a god, or they would pick a god and be a believer. Therefore, an agnostic is an atheist. And active believers, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, whatever they are, don't believe in more gods than they do believe in. So they also are atheists, at least towards those gods. I don't see that those constructions are refutable. So the accusation, the implication that I was being condescending, well, like I say, it stung a bit, because that would be a closed door on conversation, and I want these conversations. I love them. It's always a sort of a truism that you should never discuss religion or politics with people, even friends, because it can lead to real arguments. I've never found that to be true. Not if the friendships are strong enough, and not if the spirit is kind. And I would hope that my video was kind in spirit. I would hope that was obvious. But that was the small claim that I think was wrong on Noah's part. But he made a larger claim that didn't just involve me, that I think was also wrong, and more importantly so, which is at one point towards the end of his video, he says something that is often said by people who are attacking atheism, and especially attacking hard atheism. I don't think that Noah was using it to attack. I think he was just bringing it up as a subject, but one way or another, it's disturbing. At one point in his video, he mentions that scientific materialism, in other words, the study of the measurable, the repeatable, the testable, the observable, is just another religion. That it also requires faith, that it is also a faith system. And that is fundamentally not true. Obviously, fundamentally not true, and dangerous, because the only way that you can believe that is to believe that physical reality isn't real. If you want to study an isotope in a magnetic spectrometer or whatever, and then you can go ahead and do that. If you have a test to run on that isotope, You need the spectrometer, you need your training in physics, and you need the isotope. And then you can study it, and you will learn whatever you will learn. And if you take that spectrometer, that spectrograph, and the isotope, and the training to a Buddhist in Indonesia, to an atheist in mainland China, and you hand them all of those materials, they'll get the same results. And the one thing that you won't be handing them, you won't say, here's your spectrometer, here's your training, here's your isotope, here's the experiment we want you to run, and also here's my dogma. Here's what I firmly, passionately, personally believe about the outcome of this experience. The one thing you won't give them is that last thing. You won't tell them dogma. It's irrelevant, and they wouldn't need it. And whether you tell it to them or not, the result will be exactly the same in those laboratories, provided the people involved have competence. The result will be the same. You could hand it to anybody, anywhere, regardless of their personal belief in things unseen, and they would get the same result. That's obviously not a faith system. That's demonstrable in the real world. I firmly believe that Noah does not think he's making a leap of faith when he turns on his car's ignition in the morning. I firmly believe that he's not praying or hoping for the best or even doubting the outcome when he flips a light switch. It's always confused me when people make this argument, when they say, scientific materialism is just another religion. It seems almost like they're drawing a false equivalence. It seems almost like they're saying, well, you fervently believe in it, and the only thing you can fervently believe in is a religion, so it must be another religion. Now, that's not true. That's not true at all. You fervently believe in gravity because you can see it. You can measure it. You know what happens when it goes away. Firm belief is not just a sign that you're dealing with another creed. There are no creeds in science. There are no dogmas. There are no leaps of faith in the dark. So that was a larger point that Noah made, a larger claim that he made that I wanted to refute. I thought was wrong. I happen to think myself that the smaller point about me being condescending is also wrong. But the other video response was from Tom L.A. Books, our Dante scholar, taking us through, once again, I'll just say that both Noah and Tom are regularly, in addition to all the other great stuff they do on their channel, they're regularly producing something that you really shouldn't miss. Noah's live streams on Friday nights, you really shouldn't miss. And Tom's read-through, canto by canto, of the Divine Comedy is something you really shouldn't miss. And Tom made a response to Noah and me, and had a lot of fascinating things to say. Like I said, I'll link to both these videos down below. And in Tom's video as well, I believe there were two claims, one small, one large, that are false. That sort of got my hackles up right away. And the small claim that Tom makes that I believe is false is only small because we're looking at it in the 21st century. If we're looking at it in virtually any other century of the Christian era, his small claim would not only have been the only thing in his video, would have eclipsed anything else that he said, but it would also have got him burned to death in public, with a jeering crowd watching while he screamed for an hour in agony in his own native Italy, even as late as 200 years ago. It would have got him arrested, beaten, maybe killed, possibly even burned to death. And that small claim that he made was that there's a place for in Christianity for all of those other faith systems, that Christianity has a use for them and doesn't just totally exclude them. The image almost that he gave was one of embracing, that this is all some sort of manifestation of the divine, and Christianity is okay with that. This is a very Dantean view. in the Inferno, in Dante's Inferno, he makes it pretty clear that he thinks that all of those old gods, all those pagan deities before the Christian era, were real. They were just false. They were demons. They were servants of Satan and are in hell with him. But not that they didn't exist. Not that they were just an empty set. So Dante sort of codified right there in his great poem the urge that I think is common in a lot of broad-minded Christians to do something with these old gods, not just to dismiss them, but to do something with them, incorporate them. It was that very sentiment was the absolute fuel that fired the humanist Italian Renaissance. And I think it still works its way today. And part of that, I think, is just an intellectual broad-mindedness. Certainly in Tom's case, I think it is. Uh, Another part of that would be, what's the alternative if you don't do that? The alternative if you don't do that is to recognize that religions die and that gods can be false. And if you are, especially someone in charge of Christianity, you're not going to want to do that. You're not going to want to make that observation. It's awkward enough as it is. I mean, think of Noah. When he sets foot on the soil of his home state, he is walking on the same ground that 4,000 years ago was walked on by thousands of people who had a belief in their own pantheon of gods, their own rituals, their own observation days, their own cautions, their own list of things those gods did not like, and the list of things those gods commanded. And those people that lived on the very ground he walks on in his home state believed and taught their children, generation after generation, that if you do right by the gods, they will protect you. They have given you this land, and they will protect you if you obey their rules, as communicated to you by me, the tribe's priest. And that belief, taught to all of those children over all of those centuries, was wrong. That belief was wrong. When strangers came who had different gods, yes, but who also had superior technology, those strangers bustled everybody off the land they lived on for centuries, penned them up in deserts in Arizona, and laughed while they died of starvation. And nothing prevented that. No gods prevented that. The bargain that had been drilled into those children for centuries on the very land where Noah walks, and for that matter, the very land in Southern California where Tom walks, was a lie. That bargain was a lie. Maybe not a conscious one. Maybe the people who drummed it into the heads of those children in catechism class really believed it. But it obviously wasn't true. So you can see the motivation for someone in the Christian religion or Islam or Judaism or whatever to say, well, maybe those old gods were real. They must have been real, and maybe we'll have to find a home for them. We'll have to deal with them somehow. Because the alternative to doing that is to say they weren't real. That no matter how hard all those centuries of believers believed in them, they weren't real. They didn't do what they said. They're gone. One way or another, I think that small claim on Tom's part, at least now in the 21st century, we can view it in a kind of amusing way as a small claim. I think that is dead wrong. I think most Christians that you would talk to, not to justify it by a crowd, but I think most Christians that you would talk to would say those gods were either demons or not real at all. I don't think they would think there's any kind of way for Christianity to holistically embrace them, to say nothing of the very first of the 10 Commandments. But then there was also a larger claim that Tom made that was very akin to the larger claim that Noah made that I also want to refute. I also want to object to it. I think it's manifestly false. And that was at one point, Tom said that everybody has faith in something, which seemed very similar to Noah saying, well, if you believe in scientific rationalism, you have faith in that as though it were a religious dogma. Yes, we use the phrase, in common English parlance, we use the phrase, I have faith in you. I have faith that the Red Sox will win the World Series. I have faith that so-and-so, a friend of mine, will do the right thing. And by that I mean, knowing what I know about your personality, and as tempting as the wrong thing might be to do, I have faith that you will do the right thing for a whole host of personal ethical reasons that I know you well enough to know you will make. And needless to say, aside from a coincidence of language, there's nothing like that in religion at all. Nothing at all. It's a totally different claim to say, I have faith that Tom will not misread the next canto that he gets to in the Divine Comedy. I have faith that he won't do that. That's a completely different thing from saying I have faith in Jehovah. I have never met Jehovah. No one has ever met Jehovah. No one knows anything about Jehovah. No one can demonstrate anything about Jehovah. No one can list, make a playlist of all the different things that that Jehovah has verifiably, repeatedly, testably done. I can do all of that for Tom. My faith in him not to misread Dante is not based on nothing. It's not based on a wild leap into the dark. Just it's the same word, yes, but it's not the same thing. In point of fact, there are plenty of people in the world who don't have any religious faith and who don't require it to get right back to soft atheism. They don't need it. They go through life with just thinking about other things, placing the other kind, the secular kind of faith in things, but nothing religious. No leap into the dark. And I wanted to clarify those things because I take this subject seriously. I have seen the wonders that strongly held religious faith can work in the lives of the faithful. Given my own culture, it's been mostly Christianity, but I've seen it in many religions, and I know that it's real. I know that the faith is real. I know that the effects it can have on someone are real. And I value that. I treasure it. I esteem it. I don't disparage it in any way. I'm not giggling at it in any way. I don't share that faith. And I don't want anyone to tell me that I should. And I especially don't want anyone to tell me that they don't have that faith on just belief alone, but rather that they believe it because of a reason. Some observable, findable, testable, repeatable reason. I especially don't want somebody to tell me that as if I've somehow missed that, as if that reason for believing in Allah is out there and I just haven't seen it. I have seen what some religious people have trotted out as proofs of their faith, and they are fly-blown. There's nothing to them at all, and nor should there be. The thing that makes faith wondrous is that it's a leap into the dark. Your faith shouldn't need such things, and it shouldn't be threatened by someone saying such things don't exist. I have seen the wonders that kind of faith can create, the metaphorical mountains that it can move. I value it. I wouldn't want to live in a world without it. The only reservations that I have about it are A, I don't want you to tell me, or in some countries and in some eras, force me to profess that belief myself. And B, I don't want you to tell me that belief is based on something like gravity, on something like scientific materialism. It isn't. It isn't. Otherwise, there would be only one faith, instead of faiths warring with each other for the last 17,000 years. Keep in mind that the three Abrahamic so-called monotheisms have been at war with each other since they existed. There's scarcely been a single day that Judaism, Christianity, and Islam have been alive together on this planet when they haven't been at war with each other. So obviously there's no great concrete proof out there that everyone can just point to, or there would be the kind of embracing that Tom is talking about. That obviously doesn't exist. So I don't like it when the religious faith will tell me, well, there's plenty of evidence. But aside from that, aside from when a religious person's belief in their faith trods on my own world, when it doesn't do that, I love it. I have nothing but respect for it. I just wanted to make that clear as this dialogue progresses. Because I'm hoping that that's what this is. We're all friends here. We all respect each other's intelligence. We respect each other's passion and emotion. I'm hoping that this dialogue continues. I think that would be one of the greatest gifts of maybe Midrash this year or any other year. So I just wanted to clarify those. I'm pretty sure those are the only two response videos that have been made that I have seen. If more come up, I will correct them as well. One of the burdens when you are all-knowing and a sexy 28-year-old. Not to start more trouble. I'll wrap this up before I make anybody angry, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.